Okay, so still talking about section 6.1, the prerequisites from Math 97. In Math 97, last semester, you learned how to multiply two binomials. In fact, you also learned how to multiply a polynomial, maybe 3 terms by 2 terms. All right, but for this section, for my math lab and the worksheets in this section, I need for you to be able to multiply two binomials. So let's just review how to multiply this. Now, we're going to use this example for a moment. So it's going to say multiply, and let's say we had 3x, I'm going to do a simple one for right now, minus 2 times, let's say 2x plus 5. Let's just say we had that. Okay, now, when you first talked about multiplying polynomials last semester, you learned this. You learned that to multiply two polynomials, you would take every term in here, every term in that second polynomial, remember this is a product right here, every term in that second polynomial you would multiply by each term in the first polynomial. So basically you would be saying this. You would say 3x times the second polynomial and a negative 2 times that second polynomial. So when you wrote it out, it looked like this. It looked like 3x times the second polynomial minus 2 times the second polynomial. That's what it looked like. So 3x times all of this, and then plus a negative 2 times all of this. That's what this looks like. Okay, so there's another term in here. You'd say plus or minus, whatever that is, times the second one. All right, now you see this right here? That looks like what we just did in goal 1. Remember, goal 1 was to multiply a polynomial by a monomial. So you're just going to say 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Now I'm going to go ahead and, remember in the first goal we actually wrote out that stuff? So I need for you to be able to now do some stuff in your head. You need to be proficient with this. So 3x times 2x is 6x squared. 3 times 2 is 6. X times x. Multiply like bases. You add exponents. 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so 3x times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So 3x times 5 is a positive 15x. 15x. All right. And over here, you can distribute the negative 2. So a negative 2 times a positive 2x is a negative 4x. A negative 2 times a positive 2x is a negative 4x. And then a negative 2 times a positive 5 is a negative 10. So I get these 4 terms right here. These 4 terms. All right. Now remember, the next thing we're going to do is combine like terms if we can. All right, now there are 4 terms. 2 of these terms are alike. See how this positive 15x and the negative 14x, negative 4x, they both have the same variable x, and both variables, both x's, are being raised to the same power. So that makes those like terms. And guys, when we write down the answer, we always put it in descending order. Descending order. So make sure your answer is written in descending order. That's how we prefer the polynomial to be written if it just has one variable in it. All right, so we get 6x squared. I cannot combine 6x squared with anything else, so bring it down. But over here, remember, these are like terms. So a positive 15, if you need to use your calculator, use your calculator. A positive 15 and a negative 4 is a positive 11. So I get plus 11x. And then the only thing left over is this constant. Remember, there's no variable, so it's going to be a constant, and the constant's a negative 10. So I get 6x squared plus 11x minus 10. It is in descending order, meaning I'm going from the largest exponent to the smallest. So x squared, x to the first, and then the constant. So always write the constant last. And so that's your answer. So last semester you did some of these problems using this approach. But now, remember, last semester you also talked about the FOIL method. And so when we do factoring in this chapter, factoring about trial and error, you're going to be using the idea of FOIL. Now remember, FOIL, you use FOIL if you're multiplying two binomials together. Multiplying two binomials. And so when we did this problem right here, since this is a binomial, or binomial means two terms. So this polynomial has two terms. This polynomial has two terms. So if I wanted to, I could have used the FOIL method. So remember, binomial is a polynomial with two terms. All right, now in FOIL, the F stands for first term of each binomial. So F stands for first term of each binomial. The O stands for the outer term of each binomial. So the outer term of each binomial. So you'll be looking at the outer term of each binomial. The I says that you're going to be looking at the inner term of each binomial. The inner term of each binomial. The terms on the inside. So terms on the inside. All right, terms on the inside. And then here you're looking at the terms on the outside. Terms on the outside. On the outside. Okay, and the L says that you're going to be looking at the last term of each binomial. All right, so the last term of each binomial. All right, so the example we just did, we rewrite it. I'm going to show you how simple this is. Just use the FOIL method. So the example we just did was this. So we're going to multiply 3x minus 2 times 2x plus 5. All right, so we're going to use it, multiply using the FOIL method. So we're going to use the FOIL method. And on the worksheet, so on worksheet 6.1 part B, the one that deals with multiplying binomials, I need for you to use the FOIL method because that's going to be important as we go through the factoring. Okay, so let's talk about the F. So remember, F says I take the first term of each binomial. So if you look at this binomial, the first term is 3x. If I look at this binomial, the first term is 2x. So I take these two terms right here, 3x times 2x, and I multiply them together. All right, so 3x, remember this multiplication, times 2x is 6x squared. So there's your F. That's the F. Number right here. Remember we got right here? Look, right here, 6x squared. Okay? All right, now let's talk about the outer. So the outer, if you look at this expression right here, if you look at this expression, the whole thing together, this whole structure, if you look at this, the terms on the outside. So look on the outside parentheses. So I have 3x times a positive 5. So 3x times a positive 5 is a positive 15x. And so look, that's what we got here. See this? And then the inner, so if you look at this expression again, the inner means the inside terms. So these inside terms. So a negative 2, be careful, remember this is not a 2, it's a negative 2, times a positive 2x. So a negative 2 times a positive 2x is a negative 4x. Now remember, that's what we got right here. That's what we got here. So negative 4x. And then L stands for the last term of each binomial. So if you look at this binomial, this is the last term. If you look at this binomial, this is the last term. So if I multiply those together, so a negative 2 times a positive 5 is a negative 10. And that's what we got here, right here. All right, and then finally we combine like terms. Combine like terms. And for the most part, it's not always true, but for the most part, you'll be able to combine. See the outer and the inner? If you do this correctly, that's not always true. But for the binomials that have the same variable, raised to the same power, then this is true. So see how x is raised to the first, x is raised to the first? All right, so the when we combine like terms, I'm going to get the answer 6x squared. A positive 15x and a negative 4x, combine them, combine like terms. That's a positive 11x, and then minus 10. All right, so that's your FOIL. All right, let's do another example with FOIL. All right, so let's look at this example. Multiply. Let's say we had 5a minus 6 times 2a minus 3. So 5a minus 6 times 2a minus 3. I'm going to do this using the FOIL method. All right, so let's go through this again. So remember f, we can do f first. So f says I take the first term of each binomial. So this binomial, the first term is 5a. This binomial, the first term is 2a. And I'm going to multiply those two things together, those two terms together. So 5a times 2a is 10a squared, not 10a, because remember, you still got to use the product rule. When you multiply like bases, you add exponents. So a to the first times a to the first is a squared. All right, now the outer. So then I go to the structure right here, the whole thing, and you look on the terms that's on the outside. So 5a times a negative 3 is a negative 15a. All right, now the inner. So again, you go to the structure, this whole thing right here, and you look at what's on the inside. So a negative 6 times 2a is a negative 12a. So a negative 6 times a positive 2a is a negative 12a. And then the last, so that basically says you take the last term of each binomial, so a negative 6 times a negative 3. So a negative 6 times a negative 3 is a positive 18. So a negative times a negative is a positive. And then if you look at this, I can combine like terms. See the outer and the inner? They're like terms. There were no other like terms. Again, put in descending order. Remember, descending order. We talked about that. Descending order. Put your constants last. So I get 6a squared. I'm sorry, 10a squared. All right, a negative, if you can't do this in your head, make sure you use your calculator. A negative 15 and a negative 12 is a negative 27. Again, if you can't remember your rules from 2 semesters ago, then use your calculator. Negative 15 and a negative 12 is a negative 27. All right, but it's a negative 15a and a negative 12a, so it's a negative 27a. And then finally your constant plus 18. And so that's your answer. That's what you would put in the blank. Okay? All right, let's look at this. All right, before we look at the next one, let's just kind of review something for a moment. Remember, if I have, let's say, x squared. Remember, x squared means x times x, right? That's what x squared means. So x squared means x times x. So that says that whatever I'm squaring, that means I multiply what I have circled times itself twice. That's what that means. So if you look at this one right here, let's say you want to multiply 3x minus 2 squared. So 3x minus 2 squared. Now, be careful. 3x minus 2 squared does not mean I square each term. Okay, so the answer is not going to be, which is a common mistake, the answer is not going to be 3x squared. In your mind, you're going to say, well, that's 9x squared. And then a negative 2 squared, negative 2 to the negative 2 is a positive 4. That's not the answer. All right, so when you get a problem, and you're going to have quite a few, when you get an expression that looks like something squared, don't square each term. That's not what that means. All right, so you're not going to get 2 terms. If you actually multiply this out correctly, you're going to get 3 terms in the answer. 3 terms, not 2. So be careful. That is a common mistake. So you need to try and fix that mistake if that's something you do. Okay, but the way you want to do this is think about what we just did. So I am squaring this binomial. All right, this says I take this binomial and I square. Well, see right here when I had this circle, when I circled x, that means I take this base, remember this base, and I multiply by itself 2 times. Over here, my base is 3x minus 2. So that means I take 3x minus 2 and I multiply by itself 2 times. So now that looks like something I can use a FOIL method with. So I have multiplying 2 binomials, so I use a FOIL. All right, so as you do this, don't forget, write it out. This is what you want to do. All right, so you go through the FOIL. First term times first term. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. All right, see, we had that 9x squared here. The outer, the term's on the outside, so look at this, it's on the outside. 3x times a negative 2 is a negative 6x. Negative 6x. The inner, the term's on the inside. A negative 2 times 3x is also a negative 6x. Now, just to remind you about something, whenever you're squaring a binomial, the outer and the inner should be the same term. The outer and inner should be the same. All right, and then finally the last. So the last says I take negative 2, multiply by negative 2. So a negative 2 times a negative 2 is a positive 4. All right, combine like terms. Now be careful. Some of you are going to say these cancel out. You get a 0. That's not true. Those are not opposites. A negative 6x and a negative 6x is not 0. A negative 6x and a negative 6x is a negative 12x. So combine like terms, I get 9x squared minus 12x and then plus 4. So notice you get 3 terms, not 2. So if you make that mistake here, you're missing a term and you're going to get the wrong answer. All right, so that's your answer. All right, let's do one more with this. So let's do something that has 2 variables in it. So let's multiply. Let's see. Let's say we had 4x minus 5y squared. Right here, 4x minus 5y squared. So again, don't square each of those terms. That's incorrect. So don't say this squared and then this squared. What this means is I take this base, which is 4x minus 5y, and I multiply by itself 2 times. So 4x minus 5y times 4x minus 5y. Okay? And then I use a FOIL method because I'm multiplying 2 binomials, so use a FOIL method. So FOIL. So I take the first term of each binomial. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4 times 4 is 16. X times x is x squared. The outside terms on the outside, a positive 4x times a negative 5y is a negative 20xy. So 4x times a negative 5y is a negative 20xy. The inner, now remember, you're squaring a binomial, right? So the outer and the inner should be the same term. So a negative 5y and a positive 4x, remember negative 5y, and a positive 4x as a negative 20xy. Now you could have written it as negative 20yx, but remember we talked about this earlier. We always tend to put things in alphabetical order. And then finally the last, and notice those two are the same, the outer and inner are the same term. The last, a negative 5y times a negative 5y, a negative 5y times a negative 5y is a positive 25y squared. A negative times a negative is a positive, so you get plus. 5 times 5 is 25, y times y is y squared. And then finally, remember, combine like terms. I can combine these right here. So these are your like terms, the outer and inner right here. They both have xy to the first power, x to the first, y to the first. So I get 16x squared. All right, now a negative 20 and a negative 20 is a negative 40. So that's negative 40xy. And then plus 25y squared. Okay, so that's the answer. That's the answer you would put in the blank on the worksheet. So now you're ready to start section 6.1, part B, worksheet. Section 6.1, part B, worksheet.